As we approach another spooky season, you may be curious about which spooky games to play and go for the platinum trophies on. And if you're not, hi, how are you? Welcome aboard. Here is a list of 13 spooky platinum trophies you should go for this Halloween. Kicking us off on this list we have the Amnesia collection. This collection contains the excellent Amnesia, The Dark Descent, its memorable content, Justine, and Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs. The Amnesia games are exploration-based survival horror games where you play as a character with amnesia. What a shock! In these games you must navigate either a castle, a basement, or the streets of London and the industrial tunnels underneath. A unique twist with these games is that there is no combat involved. You must be stealthy when you can, while also trying to stay in the light to maintain the character's sanity levels. And when you can't be sneaky, you gotta get the hell out of there as soon as possible, or die. In terms of trophies, the Amnesia collection is a 3 out of 10 in difficulty. That will take a minimum of 3 playthroughs, 1 per game, and will take around 15 to 20 hours to get the platinum trophy. The hardest trophies in this collection are all related to collectibles, as you will need to get all the collectibles in all 3 games to unlock this trophy. I would suggest doing a blind playthrough first to experience the games as they were meant to be experienced, then once you are finished, going back following a collectible guide to unlock all of the collectibles in a single playthrough. While on the topic of Amnesia games, there are also 2 newer games in the series. Rebirth, which is a 5 out of 10 difficulty, will require 3 playthroughs and will take around 20 hours, and The Bunker, which is a 3 out of 10 difficulty, will require 2 playthroughs and take around 10 hours. Second up on this list we've got the Little Nightmare series, which are creepy, atmospheric, puzzle platform horror adventures that are absolutely worth your time. In the first game you play as Six, a small girl trying to escape the maw, a massive twisted underwater vessel filled with grotesque creatures. You'll sneak through dark, unsettling environments, solve puzzles and try not to get caught by the absolute nightmare fuel that lives there. In this game, stealth and timing are key. In Little Nightmares 2, you take control of Mono, a boy trapped in a distorted world corrupted by strange transmissions. This time, though, you're not alone. Six returns as a companion, and together you'll try to survive the haunting streets of the Pale City while dodging some truly disturbing enemies. In terms of trophies, Little Nightmares 1 sadly doesn't have a platinum trophy. But it's still a solid completion at about 5 out of 10 difficulty that will take 2 playthroughs and around about 8 hours to finish everything. Little Nightmares 2 on the other hand does actually have a platinum, which is around a 3 out of 10 difficulty and requires 1 main playthrough and maybe a short cleanup run if you miss a few collectibles, which will take around about 6 hours for the platinum. And finally, the recently released Little Nightmares 3. In this one you'll play as Lo and Alone, 2 new characters that explore a fresh, terrifying world called the Spiral. According to the legend that is Power Pikes, it is a 3 out of 10 difficulty that will take 2 playthroughs and around 7 hours to complete. At number 3 on this list we have the Dead Space remake. Released in 2023, this is a remake of the 2008 survival horror game Dead Space, featuring upgraded visuals, lighting and environments, while maintaining the core gameplay and story elements from the original. In this game, you play as engineer Isaac Clarke, as he boards and explores the mining vessel, the USG Ishimura, to repair it, only to find it overrun by monsters known as necromorphs. You must navigate and survive the ship, scavenging for ammo and supplies, and surviving encounters with said necromorphs. In terms of trophies, this is a 4 out of 10 difficulty, which will require a minimum of 3 playthroughs and will take around 40 hours to platinum. The hardest trophy to earn in the Dead Space remake is Untouchable, for completing the game in impossible modes. Impossible mode is the same as hard mode, just with 1 extra detail. It is permadeath. This is not one that I have done personally, so if you have, then please feel free to let me know and put me to shame. While I am here, there is also the spiritual successor to Dead Space, known as the Callisto Protocol. The survival horror game has you play as a starship captain who ends up crash landing on a moon and captured in a high security prison. You are forced to fight and survive the horrors you discover on your journey to escape. The platinum trophy for Callisto Protocol is a 5 out of 10 difficulty, can be done in 1 playthrough and will take around 10 hours to obtain. Moving on to our first zombie themed entry, we have Days Gone. This 2019 and 2021 remastered action horror adventure takes place in a post-apocalyptic Oregon after the start of a pandemic that turned humans into zombie-like creatures. You play as Deacon St. John on a quest to find his wife, who he believed was killed. While the story and writing in itself is not anything outstanding, and honestly pretty cringy in places, it is still an enjoyable game to play, letting you roam around an open world on Deacon's motorbike, dealing with hordes of the undead, which are the scariest part of this game, especially the first time you encounter one of the hordes. If you know, then you know. In terms of trophies, Days Gone is around a 4 out of 10 difficulty, with everything being obtainable in a single playthrough, which will take you around about 60 hours to complete. Moving on, I have decided to cheat a little, and include the Resident Evil series in here. For the sake of this list, I have only stuck with the remakes and newer entries in the series. However, there are plenty more Resident Evil games than these to play. For the classic remakes of Resident Evil 2, which is a 5 out of 10 difficulty, will take 6 playthroughs and about 30 hours to complete, and Resident Evil 3, which is a 3 out of 10 difficulty, will take 5 playthroughs and 20 hours to complete. Going to my personal favourite, which is Resident Evil 4, which is a 6 out of 10 difficulty, it will take 7 playthroughs and 50 hours to complete. Into the newer entries in the series, Resident Evil 7, which is a 5 out of 10 difficulty, will require 3 playthroughs and 25 hours. Resident Evil Village, which is a 6 out of 10 difficulty, will require 3 playthroughs and about 30 hours to complete. While some of these are slightly more difficult, the hardest parts of these Platinum trophies are for their multiple specific completion requirements, often needing you to complete the game in under a set time, or using only a specific amount of healing items or save points. These can seem daunting at first, but with practice and experience from previous runs they are not as bad as they sound, and often upon completion unlock more weapons or perks to make future runs even easier too. Continuing my trend of picking a series rather than a specific game because I am incredibly indecisive, up next we have Alan Wake 1 and 2. Alan Wake Remastered 2021 remaster of the iconic 2010 action-adventure game. In this you play as Alan Wake, a best-selling author suffering from writer's block, on holiday in Bright Falls with his wife, who mysteriously disappears, and you must uncover the mystery behind her disappearance while experiencing events from his latest novel happen in front of his own eyes, which he cannot remember writing. Alan Wake 2 is a more survival horror game where you play as FBI agent Saga Anderson investigating ritualistic murders in Bright Falls, and again as author Alan Wake, who has been trapped for 13 years in a dark, nightmare-fueled dimension, writing his way out. In terms of trophies, neither of these games are too difficult to get the Platinum trophy on. Alan Wake Remastered is around a 4 out of 10 difficulty that would take 2 playthroughs and 25 hours to obtain. There are a few missable, collectible and difficulty specific trophies to keep you occupied. Alan Wake 2 is around a 3 out of 10 difficulty. Everything can be obtained in one playthrough, which will take around about 20 hours to finish. There are also a few collectibles which are missable, but these can be obtained in another playthrough if you miss them. Just like with the Resident Evil entry previously, I have decided to cheat a bit with this next entry too, and dedicate it to one specific type and series of games, which is the Until Dawn and Dark Pictures series. These games are choice-based horror games with quick-time elements attached that can make or break your playthrough. In these games, your decisions or choices matter and can determine who lives or who dies, and they all have a large variety of settings, from Until Dawn, which is set in an old mountain home with a group of teenagers being chased by a mysterious figure, Man of Medan, which features a group of friends being hunted by pirates through an old abandoned ship, House of Ashes, which features a US army group in an ancient underground tomb battling against foreign soldiers and monsters, Little Hope, which features a teacher and students on a field trip navigating an abandoned supernatural town after their bus has crashed. The Devil! And finally, The Devil and Me, which features a group of documentary filmmakers receiving a mysterious call inviting them to a modern day murder hotel. These games are all unique in their setting, storytelling and environment, and offer up tense, fast decision making that will have you always wondering if you made the right decision or not. In terms of trophies, none of these games are too difficult, all of them being a 2 out of 10 in difficulty. However, all of them, except from Until Dawn, require multiple playthroughs, as there are specific trophies for completing full playthroughs doing only head or heart decisions, as well as ones for making certain characters stay alive or die, on top of chapter specific trophies and collectibles, which can be cleaned up in Chapter Select. These platinums will all take between 20 and 35 hours to obtain, and are super fun playthroughs which I highly recommend. As a quick side note, the Until Dawn PS5 remake will be added to PlayStation Plus in October 2025. Moving on to the next pick, I have the Layers of Fear remake from 2023, which acts as a remake and sequel to Layers of Fear and Layers of Fear 2. In these horror games you play through the painter story from Layers of Fear, where you must navigate a Victorian mansion to help finish a magnum opus painting, and the actor story from Layers of Fear 2, where you play as a Hollywood actor navigating your way around the ship for their latest film role, dealing with the psychological horror of the character being played alongside their own trauma. The Layers of Fear trophy difficulty is classed as a 3 out of 10 that would take around 15 hours to complete. However, this has at least 6 playthroughs required to earn the Platinum trophy. Up next I have included something a bit different, but still horror and spooky nonetheless. We have the Plague Tale series. Firstly, the action-adventure stealth game A Plague Tale: Innocence is set in France during the 100 Years' War, specifically focusing on Amicia and her sick brother Hugo, as they flee from the French Inquisition and rats that are spreading the Black Plague throughout the country, solving puzzles, using stealth, and a limited dose selection to distract, take out or hide from soldiers along the way. Its sequel, A Plague Tale: Requiem, continues on with Hugo and Amicia as they continue to hunt for a cure for Hugo's blood illness, continuing to flee from the soldiers of the Inquisition and rats that continue to plague the land. With expanded combat, stealth and puzzle mechanics, this sequel tells a great story and was a very great playthrough with a lot of rats to deal with.
Crazy. I was crazy once. They locked me in a room. A rubber room. A rubber room with rats. And rats make me crazy.
In terms of trophies, A Plague Tale: Innocence is a 3 out of 10 difficulty. Everything can be done in one playthrough, which will take around about 15 hours. And Requiem is about a 4 out of 10 difficulty. This will require 2 playthroughs due to a trophy for upgrading skills, and around 25 hours to earn the Platinum Trophy. Coming in at number 10 we have the iconic Alien Isolation, the 2014 video game entry into the iconic series. In Alien Isolation you play as Amanda Ripley, investigating her mother Ellen's disappearance. Alien Isolation utilises stealth and survival horror, requiring you to avoid, outsmart and fight enemies upon the space station. Alien Isolation has a strong focus on stealth and survival horror, and it is certainly worthwhile if you have not played it yet. In terms of trophies, it is a 4 out of 10 difficulty that can be done in a minimum of 2 playthroughs and 25 hours of playtime. The most challenging trophies to earn are for completing the game on the hardest difficulty setting, completing the game without killing any humans, and completing the game without dying. Moving towards the end of this list, we have the 2024 remake and retelling of the iconic Silent Hill 2. In this retelling of the 2001 video game of the same name, which has been reinterpreted with a new script, new story threads and alternate endings, along with reworked puzzles and gameplay, the plot centres on James Sunderland receiving a letter addressed to Silent Hill, Maine, claiming to be from his deceased wife. Setting course for the town to investigate its origins, he comes across a creature, Pyramid Head, and a cast of characters wrestling with their own traumatic pasts. The Platinum Trophy for Silent Hill 2 is a 4 out of 10 in terms of difficulty. It can be done in a minimum of 2 playthroughs and it will take around 25 hours. However, with a game like this and others included in this list, I strongly recommend doing a blind playthrough first so you can truly experience them as they were meant to be done. Then, if you feel like it, any future playthroughs you can go back and collect any missing trophies and earn your Platinum Trophy. As with the Until Dawn remake, this game has also been added to the PlayStation Plus catalogue as of October 2025. The penultimate entry in this list is 2015's Dying Light, a survival horror game set in a fictional Middle Eastern city called Haran, where you play as Kyle Crane, an undercover agent set to infiltrate the zone and figure out what is going on. In Dying Light, you must mix parkour with weapons combat, allowing you to utilise fight or flight if you do so prefer. Dying Light features a day and night system in which during the daytime hours zombies are more slow and clumsy, however when the night comes they become much more aggressive and deadly, and are able to spot and pursue you much more effectively. This makes exploring and fearing in the open world as scary as it is fun. In terms of trophies, Dying Light is classed as a 5 out of 10 difficulty, with everything being possible in one playthrough and around 50 or so hours to do everything. No trophies are truly difficult, however there are co-op trophies present which can be frustrating to find people to play with. But once these are out of the way, the remainder of the Platinum Trophy is a fun experience. Before I reach the final entry in this list, I have included a list of honourable mentions that were not included in the original 13. These are Visage, a psychological horror game heavily influenced by the PT teaser, utilising a first-person perspective in a suburban 1980s home where the player, Dwayne Anderson, navigates a haunted house and relives the dark histories of its past residents, who are seeking to tell their stories. The Medium, a third-person psychological horror game. You play as Marianne, a medium who can travel into the spirit realm and the real world, trying to uncover a dark secret at an abandoned Polish resort. Still Wakes the Deep is a first-person psychological horror game where you play as Kaz McCleary, an electrician stuck on a Scottish oil rig in 1975, who must survive a storm and a terrifying eldritch horror that corrupts the rig and its crew. With no weapons and limited resources, Kaz must climb, run and swim through collapsing corridors and treacherous decks to escape the unfolding nightmare and reunite with his family. And some harder honourable mentions in this list, we have Dead by Daylight, a multiplayer survival horror game where you are pitted in a 1v4 scenario with one killer against 4 survivors. In this you must work together, or don't, to try and power up the escape gates and get out while avoiding said killer. Since its launch it has featured multiple crossover events with different horror films, television series and other video games. Phasmophobia, a paranormal horror game. In this 1 to 4 players can take on the role of ghost hunters, working to complete contracts where they identify the type of ghost haunting a set area, completing optional objectives along the way. In Phasmophobia, you must investigate the haunted areas and communicate with your team, making sure to note any potential clues and keep yourself alive as long as possible. And for our final entry we have the Outlast series. Starting off with Outlast, a 2013 first-person psychological horror. In this, you play as freelance investigative journalist Miles Upshur, who investigates Mount Massive Asylum, a remote psychiatric hospital that has been overrun by homicidal and insane patients, after you receive an anonymous tip. In this game, you have no weapons, and your only means of light is a camera with night vision, requiring batteries, which run out extremely quickly if you are not careful. Because of this, you must rely on stealth, hiding in lockers under the beds rather than combat. Outlast makes great use of jump scares and horror, with some of the sights and enemies you will see lasting and being remembered long past your initial playthrough. Then there's also the 2017 sequel, Outlast 2, which revolves around cameraman Blake Langerman, who works with his wife Lynn to investigate the murder of a pregnant woman. When both get separated in a helicopter crash, Blake has to find Lynn while travelling through a village inhabited by a deranged cult that believes the Judgment Day is upon them. Outlast 2 features a larger, more open area than the asylum of Outlast 1, but the fear factor remains just as bad. There is also a third Outlast game, the recently released multiplayer experience Outlast Trials. In this up to 4-player cooperative experience, you and your co-op partners are used as test subjects and must complete objectives while avoiding enemies and traps to escape the arena. As usual, you primarily utilise stealth, however you are now able to temporarily stun enemies by throwing bricks or glass bottles at them. In terms of trophies, unfortunately Outlast 1 does not have a platinum trophy, but it is still an incredible playthrough, and I highly recommend it. Outlast 2's platinum is an 8 out of 10 difficulty, which can be done in a minimum of 3 playthroughs and will take a minimum of 25 hours to complete, which will probably be much more. The reason it is an 8 out of 10 difficulty is due to a permadeath trophy when you must complete the entire game on the hardest difficulty without dying, and if you do die you must restart from the very beginning again. Outlast Trials is a 3 out of 10 in terms of difficulty, which will require a staggering 40 playthroughs and will take a minimum of 25 hours. It is classed as 40 playthroughs due to having to complete 40 separate runs and maps to obtain the Platinum Trophy. And so there we have it, a list of 13, slightly more, spooky video games you should get the Platinum Trophies on this Halloween. As usual, if there's anything I have missed or you feel would be a good inclusion in this list, please feel free to let me know, and if there's any of these Platinum Trophies that you have earned, please let me know in the comments, I would love to hear. Thank you so much for watching as always.